So here's the thing. Most of us, we were taught to focus on fixing what is wrong with us, fixing our weaknesses, and spending years trying to become this well-rounded person. But what if I told you that this approach is actually holding you back? What if I told you that the real key to living a fulfilling and powerful life is by unlocking the strengths that already are inside of you and not chasing after the weaknesses that are not God-given to you? What if you finally see the strengths that you didn't even realize that you have? The truth is, when you don't know your strengths, life will feel like it's an uphill battle. You're putting in effort into things that drain you. You are chasing goals that don't resonate with you. And at the end of the day, you end up wondering why you still feel stuck no matter how hard you try. But it doesn't have to be that way. And today we're going to go deeper into this topic, and I'm going to show you exactly how to uncover your true strengths and how to find the strengths that will help you break through these limitations that you face in life, and how to tap into your own flow and actually start living the life that you're meant for. Trust me, by the end of this video, you will see yourself in a whole new light. So let's get started. Hi guys, I'm Adriana and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my mission is to guide you through every step of the self-improvement journey, from A to Z. Right now, we are in phase 1 of self-discovery, where we have already talked about finding your core values, finding your passion, and now we're starting a new series on understanding your strengths and your weaknesses. Understanding your strengths and your weaknesses is a very important step in the self-discovery phase, because you can't build a life that you love if you don't know what you're working with. So knowing your strengths isn't just about having this confidence of having all these amazing qualities, but it's about having clarity about who you are. It's about understanding who you are as a person, what are your qualities, so you can stop forcing yourself into roles, into jobs, into situations that don't fit. First of all, before we go into figuring out what are your strengths, let's understand why we don't see them in the first place. So if strengths are such a key part of who we are, then why don't we see them easily? Why are they so hard to recognize? Reason number 1 is because you have been trained to focus on what is wrong. So think back to a time when you were a kid. If you were bad at math, your parents or your teachers, they probably forced you on improving your math skills. If you struggled in sports, they told you to practice harder, to become better at them. But what about the things that you were naturally good at? So most of us, we grew up and we were taught to fix our weaknesses and completely ignore our strengths, ignore and not even celebrate them. So we are conditioned to think that success is about getting better at the things that we're bad at. But here's the problem. When you focus only on fixing your weaknesses, you miss the opportunity to build on your natural gifts that are already ahead than most people. So the strengths that you have are not broken. They don't need fixing. They actually just need attention and development. So what you can do is to stop asking yourself what's wrong with me, and to actually start asking yourself what is right with me in the first place. What are the things that feel easy, that feel fun, that feel fulfilling? Those are your clues. Reason number 2 why you find it hard to see your strengths is because you compare yourself to everyone else. And especially now with social media, it makes it 10 times worse. So you scroll through Instagram, you scroll through TikTok, and you see most people living their best life. They're building their businesses, they're creating art, they're crushing their fitness goals. And what do? Instead of appreciating their success and being motivated by them, you actually start questioning yourself. Why can't I do that? Why can't I have this airbrushed perfect life? And the thing with comparison is that it can become dangerous because it blinds you to your own strengths and your own good things that are happening in your own life. You're so busy admiring someone else's abilities and strengths that you actually forget about your own. But the thing that you don't understand is that your strengths are not supposed to look like theirs. So you don't need to be good at what someone else is good at. What makes you unique is the combination of your own strengths that you already have. So you are not behind. You're just simply walking your own path. So a good metaphor is to imagine a toolbox, okay? Each tool serves its own different purpose. A hammer is not better than a screwdriver. They're different. You wouldn't use a screwdriver to hammer a nail. And that same thing goes for your strengths. So stop trying to be someone else's tool and have the ability to do what that person does, and become the tool that you were designed to be. Reason number 3 is that you overlook what feels easy. The crazy ironic thing about your strengths is that they are often so natural to you that you don't even realize them. They feel easy, they feel obvious, and almost boring to yourself. And because they feel so effortless, you assume that everyone else can do them too. But let me tell you something. The things that come easy to you, they're not easy for everyone else. What feels like second nature to you is someone else's struggle, actually. So stop undervaluing the things that come naturally to you. Just because it feels easy, it doesn't mean that it's not valuable. In fact, the easier it feels to you, the more likely it is that it's a true strength that you have. So an exercise here is to think about one compliment that you have brushed off recently. Maybe someone said that you're great at listening. Maybe they said that you're great at organizing, or you're great at problem solving. You know what? Just write it down and reflect why you have dismissed it. You're gonna realize by reflecting on it that that compliment is pointing to a strength that you have been overlooking. So reason number 4 why you don't see your strengths is because you have a fear of acknowledging your strengths. And this one might not be obvious, but sometimes we don't acknowledge our strengths because we are scared. What are we scared of? Well, we are scared of failing if we lean into them. We're scared of taking the responsibility that comes with owning them. We're scared of what it means that if we're not as good as we think we should be at them. But here's the thing. Owning your strengths isn't arrogant, it's empowering. When you actually recognize what you're good at, you give yourself permission to use those strengths to make an impact. So I will suggest to stop downplaying your abilities out of fear, and instead to ask yourself, what is the worst thing that could happen if I actually owned my strengths? And then after that, ask yourself, what is the best thing that could happen if I did that? Reason number 5 is because you are stuck in a fixed mindset. So if you believe that strengths are something that you're either born with or without, then you're stuck in a fixed mindset. And this belief keeps you away from exploring, it keeps you away from growing or even acknowledging your own potential. So you just have to understand that strengths are not fixed, but they're actually fluid. So just because you haven't discovered them yet, it doesn't mean that they are not there. Just like there are no fruit on the trees during winter, it doesn't mean that there aren't going to be any fruit at all. The seed is there, is inside the tree, and you can't see it, of course, but it doesn't mean that during spring or during summer that there isn't going to be a whole fruit there. So your strengths are the same. Just because you can't see them fully formed now, it doesn't mean that they don't have the potential to be. You have the seed of that strength inside of you that can evolve, and it can grow, and it can surprise you when you least expect it. So the key takeaway here is that your strengths are not missing, but they're just hiding behind all the layers of your self-doubt, of comparison, and of fear. And by shifting your mindset and breaking through these barriers, you actually start to see yourself for who you really are. You're gonna start seeing yourself as someone with their own unique and valuable gifts. Now let's go into the part of how to actually discover your strengths. Well, most advice that people give you when it comes to discovering your strengths falls into two camps. Either take a quiz or ask friends and people around you what you're good at. And yeah, that could be helpful advice, but I will help you go deeper than that. First of all, what you need to do is to recognize your invisible genius. You know the saying that fish doesn't know it's in water? And that's exactly how strengths work too. The things that come naturally to you that are so easily coming to you that you barely notice, those are your biggest strengths. And why? Because you assume everyone else can do it just as effortlessly. Invisible genius is actually the stuff you dismiss as a no big deal. It's the way you can lighten the mood in a tense room, or how you always see the solution that no one else can. These are not just skills that you learn. They are actually natural traits that they can define the way that you interact with the world. So stop focusing only on the big, flashy talents, because strengths don't have to be loud, they don't have to be obvious. Sometimes they are subtle superpowers that are hiding in plain sight. So I will recommend to write down the moments when people have said to you, wow, how do you do that? That's so easy for you. And you should also ask yourself, what are some things that feel effortless to me, but it seems hard or valuable to other people? Step number 2 is to pay attention to what you defend. Something that you might not have thought of is that your strengths are often revealed in what you're most protective of. When somebody questions or criticizes something that you so deeply care about, notice that fire that starts inside of you, because that passion, that's you speaking up for that strength you have. Your strengths live in the things that you feel compelled to defend, not just for yourself but also for other people. So if you find yourself advocating for fairness, if you find yourself defending creativity or connection, that tells you a lot about your own core strengths. So maybe, for example, you have always been the one who stands up for the quiet person in the room. Or maybe you can't help but point out when a process could be more efficient, it could be done in a better way. Those are things that are not just opinions. They're actually clues of what you are stronger and more capable at than other people. So ask yourself and start noticing, what do I fiercely protect in conversations or decisions with other people or with myself? What makes me want to speak up even when I'm uncomfortable to do so? Step number 3 is to look at where you are unreasonable. Strengths don't live in the middle of the road. They are usually found in the extremes. So think about it. The areas where you are too much or not enough, they often point directly to your own unique abilities. So maybe you're too intense or too detailed or too emotional. Well, great, because that intensity could mean that you're deeply focused. That detail orientation could mean that you are meticulous and you are precise. And that emotional nature you have, it's actually your ability to empathize and to connect with others. So instead of trying to tone yourself down, lean into those unreasonable traits. They could be your edge, yeah, sure, but it doesn't mean that they are flaws. For this step, the exercise is to list 3 things that people have criticized you for in the past and reframe them. Ask yourself, how could these traits be strengths in the right context? So for example, for some people, maybe I am too sensitive. But after a long time of seeing it as a flaw, I realized that, okay, wait, that shows that I am a highly empathetic person. I can feel energies and I can feel emotions stronger than most people do. And that doesn't mean that it's bad. It doesn't mean that I'm flawed. It means that I'm capable to read emotions and to read situations better than other people. So I chose to reframe it and see it as a strength because it allows me to attune to circumstances. It allows me to attune to situations and read them better than most people do. And this also allows me to empathize with people and relate with them more. And you might not see it as a strength necessarily for your own life, but for what I do, this is definitely a huge strength. Step number 4 is to notice the patterns in what drains you. So here's the twist. Instead of only focusing on what excites you, you need to also pay attention to what actually drains you. And why you do that is because often the tasks or the situations that exhaust you, they show what you're not aligned with. And by contrast, they point to where your true strengths are. So if, for example, if you hate repetitive work, it's because your strengths might be in creativity or in strategy. If you find it draining to lead without clarity, this could show that your strength might be in building systems. So your dislikes aren't just random. They aren't just things that, oh yeah, I don't like. They are signs of your natural strengths that reject what doesn't fit with you. So what can you do is to make a list of tasks or situations that consistently drain you. And for each one of them, ask, what will make this task feel energizing? The answer of that will often point to your strengths. Step number 5 is to decode the compliments that you resist. Well, we often resist compliments about our strengths, and the reason we do that is because they either feel too obvious or too far off from what we have been conditioned to value. So when somebody says, oh, you're so organized, and you brush it off, it's not because it's not true, but it's because you haven't internalized it yet as a strength. So we tend to undervalue what we're naturally good at because we didn't have to work for it. So what you can do here is to think of the last 3 compliments that you have brushed off. Write them down and ask yourself, what about this compliment made me dismiss it? Could it be because I take this strength for granted? Step number 6 is to ask what feels unfinished. You know, strengths don't always show up as things that you have mastered. A lot of times they are the areas where you feel this constant pull to improve, to refine, or to go and explore. So they are the things that you can't stop thinking about even when they frustrate you. So the unfinished parts of your life, whether it's a creative project, whether it's a problem you're obsessed with solving, or a skill you're trying to learn, they are often tied to your deepest strengths. And that pull you feel towards them is not random, it's actually a clue. Write down 3 areas of your life that you feel are unfinished or they are unresolved, and ask yourself, why do I keep coming back to this? What about this feels meaningful to me? And that could show you a lot. Step number 7 is to redefine success and to see what makes you feel alive. Forget about the society's version of success for a moment. Your strengths are tied to what makes you feel most alive and not what others think is impressive. When you chase someone else's definition of success, you will always feel like you're falling short. If you want to find your strengths are found in the moments when you feel energized, when you feel focused, when you feel connected to something bigger than yourself. So it's not about external validation, but it's about alignment. So here your exercise to take 5 minutes to reflect. What moments in the past month made me feel most alive? And ask yourself, how can I create more of those moments in my daily life? So the takeaway here is that discovering your strengths isn't about finding a checklist or fitting into someone else's box. It's actually about listening to the quiet truths that you already know, but you may have ignored until now. It's about owning your invisible genius. It's about embracing what makes you unreasonable and seeing the patterns of frustration and curiosity as clues. Don't need to force yourself into a mold. Your strengths are already there and they're just waiting for you to see them and to uncover them. And when you do that, to trust them and to use them to build a life that feels authentic for you and it makes you feel alive. Now let me tell you how you can use your strengths to transform your life. Discovering your strengths is only half the battle. The real magic happens when you start using them to create meaningful changes in your life. Your strengths aren't just traits, but they're actually tools. They're tools that when you use them intentionally, they can reshape how you approach your work, how you approach your relationships, and your purpose. So how can you use your strengths to transform your life? Firstly, you need to use your strengths as a compass for your decisions. Your strengths can become your personal GPS. They point you in the direction of where you will thrive. But most of us, what we do is to ignore this compass and to ignore this direction that we are given. And what we do is to make decisions based on fear, based on convenience, or what other people expect. When you make decisions that are aligned with your strengths, everything starts to flow more naturally. You stop feeling like you're forcing yourself into situations that don't fit. Your strengths reveal what energizes you and what drains you. So use that information as your guide. So stop asking yourself, what should I do? What should I do? And start asking yourself, okay, what am I uniquely equipped to do? An exercise here could be to think about an upcoming decision that you're struggling to make and write down how each option aligns or doesn't align with your strengths. And choose the option that feels most natural and most energizing for you. Secondly, if you want to use your strengths to transform your life, you need to stop hiding your strengths. Many of us, we downplay our strengths because we are afraid that we're gonna stand out or we're gonna seem like we're arrogant. But when you hide your strengths, you're not just doing yourself a disservice, but you are denying the whole world the value that only you can bring. So you need to change this belief that hiding your strengths will make you humble, because what it does is actually making you invisible. Your strengths are your gift to the world, and owning them isn't bragging, but it's honoring who you are. So ask yourself, what will happen if I fully leaned into my strengths? What kind of impact could I make? A practical tip here will be to identify one area in your life where you feel like you're holding back, and to challenge yourself to fully show up in that area, whether it's speaking up in a meeting, whether it's starting a new project that you have been thinking about, whether that's sharing your ideas. Give that strength a chance. Thirdly, you can use your strengths to transform your life by using your strengths to solve problems. You see, your strengths aren't just about personal growth. They are your secret weapon for dealing with challenges. So when life gets tough, leaning into your strengths can actually help you find creative solutions and to bounce back from those problems stronger. Strengths are actually most powerful when they are applied to problems. So if you're stuck, it's often because you're approaching the problem in a way that it doesn't align with your natural abilities to solve it. So if one of your strengths is empathy and you're struggling with a conflict, focus on understanding the other person's perspective. If your strength is organization, use that strength to create a plan so you can tackle the overwhelming tasks that you have in your to-do list. So here your exercise is to identify a challenge that you are currently facing and to write down 3 ways your strengths can help you approach it differently. Then take one small action today based on that insight. Another way that you can use your strengths to transform your life is by letting your strengths shape your goals. Many of us set goals based on what we think we should want. Things like money, recognition, stability. But when your goals align with your strengths, they become way more achievable and way more fulfilling. So your strengths can be a shortcut to achieving your goals because they're already aligned with who you are. And when you work with your strengths, you're not swimming against the current, but you're actually flowing with it. So here, what you can do is to take one of your big goals and ask yourself, how can I use my strengths to achieve this? And then break it down into smaller steps that allow you to leverage what you naturally are good at. Also, you could use your strengths in relationships. Your strengths aren't just about you. They are also the foundation for deeper and more meaningful connections. And when you understand your strengths, you can show up more authentically in your relationships. In relationships, we often focus on what is wrong with ourselves or what is wrong with others. But when you shift your attention to your strengths and to that person's strengths, you see the best in both. So here, what you can do is to identify one strength in yourself that actually can enhance your relationships. That could be like communication, it could be your loyalty, it could be your humor. And then you can reflect on how you could use that strength to strengthen your relationships. And finally, you can use your strengths to transform your life by aligning your work with your strengths. Work that aligns with your strengths feels purposeful and it feels more fulfilling. But most people never take the time to align their career or to align their daily tasks with their natural abilities. You don't have to build a life that drains you just because it's practical. When you work in alignment with your strengths, productivity and passion becomes effortless. So here, what you can do is to think of 3 tasks that you do regularly that drain you, and then brainstorm ways that you can adjust them, that you can delegate them, or you can reframe them so they align more with your strengths. So the takeaway of this part is that your strengths aren't just a reflection of who you are, but they're actually a roadmap for the life that you are meant to live. And when you stop ignoring or you stop hiding your strengths and you start actively using them, you will see that you will find clarity, you will find purpose, and you will find alignment. You need to understand that your strengths are your superpower. They were given to you for a specific reason. And what you need to do is to use them boldly and intentionally, and never shy out from using them, because you actually weaken them by doing that. So your strengths are the key to unlocking the life that you have always dreamed of. They're not randomly given to you for no purpose. They are yours for a reason. But discovering them is not enough. You have to also use them, you have to nurture them, and you need to let them guide you. That's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you and I love you, and I'll see you in the next video.